Hey there! Welcome! It's Ashley from Demystifying Your Health. I'm so glad that you're joining me today. In this episode, we're going to be talking about hypothermia. Obviously, most people know it's something that can occur when it's cold outside, but it can also occur in certain circumstances that most people don't realize. What are these? And how can it be treated, and what can you do to prevent it? Let's find out. So hypothermia is when your body loses heat faster than it can produce. And this is when your core body temperature drops to dangerous levels, which is below 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Obviously, on average, our normal is about 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. So this, while it doesn't seem like a lot, for your internal body temperature, that's a huge disparity, something you don't want. And it causes your heart, nervous system, and other organs to not function correctly. And this is where the majority of the problem comes from. It's not necessarily due to the environment that causes the hypothermia or the cold. It's due to what the results of that are. And it can be caused by exposure to, obviously, cold weather or immersion in cold water. However, I have seen hypothermia happen in immersion in just water in general. Obviously, water actually takes up body heat much faster than air. So the water doesn't even have to be that cold for this to happen. As far as it can be something just mild, you're outside for too long and it's cool outside and you're not wearing the proper clothes, that can be part of the reason. Or it could be something serious. Obviously, if you fall into an icy lake and get submerged, that's, huge hypothermia. So let's take a closer look at what types of symptoms, because it really depends on if you have mild, moderate, or severe hypothermia. So when it comes to symptoms of hypothermia, the first one we're going to take a look at is the mild stuff. And the first one is shivering. And this is usually that first indication that when you're shivering, you know that you're cold. And most of us can only tolerate it for so long before we're trying to figure out how to get warm again. So usually when you're shivering, that's the first indication of hypothermia, believe it or not. Next, you can have dizziness, faster breathing, trouble speaking, slight confusion, lack of coordination, fatigue, increased heart rate, and nausea. And these here, you'll see in just a second when we discuss moderate and severe, how everything starts to shift. So in moderate to severe, the shivering actually gradually stops. The person becomes increasingly clumsy. They can have slurred speech, or they'll be mumbling. They will be confused and have poor decision making. Often people who are severely hypothermic will try to remove all their clothing. And the person can be very drowsy or have low energy. Gradually, they're going to have progressive loss of consciousness, meaning that they're going to go from being awake and alert to eventually they end up in a coma. Their pulse is going to be weak, and they'll have slow, shallow breathing. So obviously here in the mild section, they're going to have faster breathing and an increased heart rate. In the moderate severe section, they're going to have the opposite. They're going to have a low, weak pulse and slow, shallow breathing. And so this can be an indication that when you start to see this change, that's when you know that the person's moving from mild to the moderate to severe side. Obviously, typically, if you have any of the mild stuff, you're going to be more likely to be able to get yourself treatment. If you're not going to really know that you're in the moderate to severe category on your own. It's going to be the awareness of someone else recognizing these symptoms and them getting you the help that you need. So obviously, if you see someone with these symptoms, make sure that you're going to get them help. When it comes to treating hypothermia, the initial most important step is obviously get out of the cold, whether it's yourself or the person who is hypothermic. Next thing is you need to remove any wet clothing and then cover either yourself or the person with blankets, leaving only the face exposed. You want to make sure you're not massaging any arms or legs or any part of the body because it can actually result in irregular heart rhythms. And if needed, you can share body heat. In order to do this, though, that means both individuals need to be without clothing, so completely naked, and under the cover of blankets. That's the only way that body heat can actually travel back and forth. As far as providing warm beverages, this you can do as well. The key thing here is the person must be awake enough to be able to swallow, otherwise they could choke. And you can also apply warm compresses to the neck, chest, and groin. Just make sure they're not heating pads or heating lamps, because this can actually damage the skin. Obviously, all of these things are the initial steps, what you're going to be doing at home or wherever you are prior to the individual, especially if they're severely hypothermic, gets medical attention at a hospital. Once there, medical professionals have a variety of tools at their disposal to help this individual recover successfully. When it comes to preventing hypothermia, there's a key thing to remember: the acronym COLD, which stands for cover, overexertion, layers, and dry. So with cover, this means cover all exposed body parts. Your hands, your face, everything should be covered if you're going to be outside in cold weather. Overexertion means you don't want to be overexerted. When you're sweating, it actually causes you to lose body heat faster. Layers means obviously you want to have multiple layers on. You want something that's cotton or something similar material-wise close to your skin to help keep the heat in, and then something that's weather resistant on the outside to help keep the cold out. And then dry. Obviously here the big thing is you want to have dry clothes. You don't want to be in wet clothes. If your clothes get wet, remove them as soon as possible. And remember, if you're outside and you start shivering, then you need to go inside. That's the first sign of hypothermia. You don't want to stick around outside until the others develop. If you have kids, make sure that they're coming inside frequently to warm up. And with infants and other small children, you want to make sure you're dressing them in one more layer than you're dressed in, because they lose body heat much faster than adults. A common thing that people who live in cold environments might have to deal with is being stranded in their car in the cold. So there's a couple things you want to be able to do to be prepared for this. One is having an emergency car kit. And this is going to be kept in your trunk, obviously, during the winter months, so that way it's readily accessible. So you're going to need to have blankets, candles or matches, or flashlights and batteries, whichever you prefer. A clean cup, this you can melt snow to have drinking water. A first aid kit, a compass, dry or canned food, obviously a can opener to open that canned food, a tow rope, booster cables, and a bag of sand or kitty litter. This is great for providing traction if you're stuck in the snow. So once you find out and figure out that you're stranded, the key thing here is you want to grab all of your stuff from your kit and bring it into the car with you. This way you're not getting out of the car every time that you need something. And then, if you're going to be stuck for a while, you want to run the car about 10 minutes every hour. This is a way you can warm up. A couple key things here to remember is make sure that your window's open slightly and that your tailpipe is clear of snow. This will prevent any exhaust from coming into the car and resulting in you having carbon monoxide poisoning. So obviously, if you live in a cold weather environment, by being prepared, you'll be less likely to have hypothermia. So make sure that you get your emergency car kit ready today. Obviously, if you're stuck in a body of water that's incredibly cold, the most important thing that you can do is to get out of the water. If you can do that quickly, easily, that's the key preferred method, obviously. However, if you can't get to shore, a boat, any object that can help get you out of the water quickly, don't swim. Your muscles actually react to the cold temperature by freezing up and seizing, so you're not going to be able to swim that far before you get exhausted. So, instead, you want to retain your body heat by bringing your arms and legs as close to you as possible while either floating or treading water. This will help keep that body heat in. If you're part of a group, you can huddle together. This also will help with body heat. And you don't want to remove your clothes while you're in the water. Believe it or not, they actually do provide some protection against the cold and keeping your body heat warm. Hopefully, obviously, you can get out of the water, but if not, follow these tips in order to help yourself become less likely to have hypothermia to the point where you're unable to be responsive enough when help does arrive. Hypothermia can be incredibly dangerous. This is why you want to do everything possible to prevent it. Hopefully after this video you have those tips so that way you can do that. Thank you for joining me today. Appreciate your time. If you found this helpful, please like, subscribe, share. If you have questions, comments, put them below. I'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, I will see you guys next time, and until then, stay healthy.